really happy to be here. I am the co-founder of Vitality Collective Hormone Health, and my work, it really centers around guiding women. And we do work with men, but I'm really passionate about guiding women through midlife using both science and, adding in a more holistic lens, honoring the physical, but also looking at the emotional and the energetic shifts that we know occur during this time. So that's why I was so excited about tonight's presentation. I personally specialize in hormone health and metabolic wellness, but what I'm truly passionate about is helping women reconnect with their bodies, restore balance, and step into this next phase of feeling, more grounded, clear, and powerful. Because I find that many of us arrive here thinking, you know, we've made it this far in life, we should feel powerful, and oftentimes we don't. So I want to set this scene that, midlife is not a decline. I like to call it a recalibration. And, when we support our body properly, it can be one of the most transformative and aligned seasons of a woman's life. So, like I mentioned, this is a reorganization, a recalibration. And what I want to talk about today is midlife in a way that maybe you haven't thought about it before, because we're not trying to look at this as, oh my gosh, I'm falling apart, but we know it can feel like, a breakdown, like it feels chaotic, confusing, frustrating and even scary sometimes. But what is really happening is that we are changing, our energy's changing, our body, our physiological body is changing. So what's happening is our nervous system is responding in kind to all those changes in our life, our identity, our roles, our needs. They're all shifting. And when all of this happens at the same time, that whole perfect storm concept, it really can feel like things are falling apart, but we are not broken. And I think that's so important that we ground ourselves in that. And before we go any further, you need to understand, and maybe I've already alluded to this, that there's a reason I care so much about this. I did not just study it. I truly 100% lived it. Tiny bit of background, I've always been a high achiever, always pushing, always doing more. I've survived a lot in my book. I've gone through divorce, remarriage, blending a family, running a business, struggling with, body image, like the whole thing. And I was always showing up for everyone else's needs. And from the outside, I guess everything looked fine, but underneath, my system was totally depleted. I'm sure many of you out there might be able to relate to that. And then when midlife hit, it's like I couldn't fake it anymore. I couldn't hold it together. And perimenopause got me good, or maybe I should say not so good. My body just, it could not keep up anymore. I was crushed by anxiety. Insomnia led to extreme exhaustion, brain fog, made me feel like I was the furthest from the top of my game you could ever imagine. I didn't even know who I was anymore. And when that all came crashing down, the good part is that that breakdown became my turning point. So I'm totally grateful for it now because it forced me to actually apply everything that I had been learning. It led me into deeper into hormone health and wellness and to really understand my metabolic profile, nervous system work, whole body support. Because I realized something really important that the one who was trying to help everybody else navigate life, I realized that I had actually been ignoring all the signals that my body was giving me for years. So that was a lot. And, it really had me change how I lived. Like I had to change how I moved, how I eat, how I sleep. I stopped pushing through everything and I started to actually support my body and that changed everything. And a woman I feel saved my life. I found a provider and that's what inspired me to change my whole career because I found a provider that changed my life that led me to bioidentical hormone therapy and helped me get the metabolic and harmonizing support that I needed. And that is why I'm on the path I'm on today. So at Vitality Collective, that's what I do. I'm a clinical hormone health coach, and we look at symptoms, we look at labs, and we look at patterns. But we're not just treating your hormones. We are looking at you. Like we look at the person in front of us and everything you're bringing to the table, because you are more than just a body. So let's talk about what's actually happening in your body, because I like to ground this in the physiologic biology, right? Estrogen is fluctuating, right? It starts to go like this in perimenopause. Progesterone is declining, and none of these changes are smooth. They're quite unpredictable. They can happen, and we have clients that it happens as early as 35 that they start changing, right? Not that they go into menopause, but we do have some really young clients that are going into early ovarian failure. And I don't know if it's just their genes, if it's the environment, or if it's the stress, but perimenopause into menopause is unpredictable. It's a full body transition. Our brain, our metabolism, our mood, our sleep, our nervous system, all of it's involved. And, and this is where a lot of women start questioning themselves and doubting themselves. Like, why do I feel like this when someone else doesn't? Why are some women anxious all the time, but you're not? And why do some have like crazy brain fog and others feel super clear? Why are some having like super heavy bleeding and then others barely have a period and feel depleted? And some have gut issues, some have heart palpitations. They have major struggle with libido, like it just disappears. They suddenly have Hashimoto's thyroid issues. And there is simply not one way to go through this change. The only thing that's the same is that we will all go through it. How we go through it is extremely individual, and it's about your entire system because it took us, 40 to 50 years to get here. So what has led you to this point? You have your own story. So while all of this is happening across the body, the next question becomes, is there a better way for me to show up? And what I want to introduce is the lens from which I look at the clients in front of me. Before I got into hormone health, I had spent years studying and practicing as an energy healer. Through that work, I did a lot of Reiki. I became a Reiki master teacher, and then I did a really deep dive into chakras. I became a holistic life coach. And I worked with a lot of women around their spiritual and energetic health. So, and what I found is simply there is no one way to experience stress and to work through the emotional patterns. As they all move through our body differently, but there are many historical ways that they've been managed through the years, including the chakras. So the chakras come from India, in the Indian culture. Meridians are from Chinese medicine. So acupuncture uses those meridians to help move energy. Reiki comes from Japan. And then there's just all these other different practices out there. But different languages, different countries, but they all point to the same idea that the body functions best when it's balanced. So, getting us balanced is a key component to surviving midlife, and not just surviving, but thriving. And this lens that we're going to present to you through the chakras, it's just one way of observing patterns. So, when we look at the body through this lens, we can break it into seven major regions, right? There's the root chakra, which is at the root of at the base of your spine. The sacral chakra, which is right below your belly button. There's a solar plexus chakra, which is like your upper abdomen. Then there's your heart chakra. Then there's your throat chakra, that's here in your neck and thyroid areas. Your third eye between your eyebrows, and then the crown is right at the top of our head. And these aren't technically anatomical structures, but they're simply a way of organizing the body into regions, energetic regions, so that we can kind of start to connect what we feel with where we feel it. So I want you to ground that idea in your thoughts for a moment that, hmm, what are the symptoms that you're having in perimenopause or menopause? Where are they most predominant? And can we connect them to a chakra area and start thinking about ways that we can start to balance that? And so that's what I love, because this is where modern science starts to support this idea. Like your body's not just chemical, it's electrical. We now have all these ways to measure the electrical signals that our heart gives out using an ECG. Our brain, it produces electrical and magnetic activity, and those are measured by EEGs. And our nervous system communicates directly through electrical signaling. And if you know anything about quantum physics, it's now showing like, oh, when something happens in one part of the world, it can actually affect some part of a molecule that happens is in another part of the world. So I hope that modern science catches up with historical energetic knowledge. I'm not sure. Well, I'm hoping for that. But what I am asking you to start considering is instead of saying, hey, what is wrong with me? We start asking, where am I feeling this? Because where you feel it really matters. Stress and anxiety, they can show up as instability in the body. Hormonal shifts, they can show up in the reproductive area, okay? Digestive issues show up in your gut. Emotional overwhelm can show up in your chest area. Thyroid and expression issues, like if you're not singing your truth on a daily basis, we can end up with lots of throat issues, including hypothyroidism. Brain fog can show up in the inability to think clearly, right? So maybe we have some chakra work to do up here. And then identity shifts, like who even am I? That's way up here in our crown chakra. So I'm going to ask you before I turn it over. I have a little bit more to say, but I want you to start thinking about where am I feeling all these changes in midlife? Because where the symptoms show up, that might reflect where your system is under the most strain, right? So we'll put the biology together with the energy. And really, once we understand it, this is where the question becomes, how can we support ourselves? Because your body responds to safety. It responds to calm. It responds to being supported, not pushed. I can advocate for that. And there are practices like breath work, meditation, Reiki. I even did CBTI for insomnia, like that, like saved my life. Having someone work with me and from a mental health perspective during that terrible time. So when our body relaxes, it begins to regulate. It's the balance. And that's what I do in my practice with hormones. And that's what I also do in my practice as a coach, helping people with the psychological and the energetic component. And when we consistently can start to feel better when we get balance in our sleep, our movement, our hormones, our emotional processing, and then surrounding ourselves like with people like this, like you're so in the right place because when your mental inspiration is with people like that we're hanging out with tonight, your system is supported, and guess what? They start to become more manageable. So I just want to leave you with my part with this is you are not falling apart, even though it might feel like it. Your body is adjusting and your identity, it's evolving, right? Your needs, they're changing and it's okay. Like we're older, we're different. We're different than we were when we were 20, 30, and 40. And it's not a decline. It's your moment of recalibration. And this is exactly what we're going to continue exploring together in these next sessions. So if this resonated with you, I would love for you to come to the chakra midlife session 2 and 3, but also, feel free. You can scan my QR code. You can reach out to me via email, or you can visit our website at myvitalitycollective.com.